Hello and welcome to Kevin's Bad Takes. I am Kevin Mitchell, this is Elliot, and today we are going over episode 3 of my NFL draft series. So we're going to look at some quarterbacks and tight ends today. The first prospect that we're going to get in is Tyler Warren. We're going to look at PFF grades. We're going to pull him up in College Football 25. We're going to look at highlights. We're just going to have a whole lot of fun, and then I'll tell you who my comparison will be for the next level. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's hop in. Alright, so as I had mentioned previously, we were going to get into Tyler Warren first. He was the first prospect I watched for this video. Initially, he was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school in the 2020 class, state of Virginia. He played in just 2 games that freshman year to maintain his red shirt. You probably already know if you play in less than 4, it's like you didn't play in any. So then over the next 2 years, which ended up being his redshirt freshman and redshirt sophomore year, he plays in 25 games. He's definitely a Division I athlete, but he only starts 3 of those games and only catches 15 total passes over 2 seasons. He really is at least on the total pool of pass catchers and probably of just playing time. He was behind Brenton Stange, who plays for the Jaguars now, and Theo Johnson, who plays for the Giants now. So there were already 2 professional tight ends on the roster. And you look at these years, this is 2022, so he's a 19-year-old kid, maybe 20, going up against these guys that are 22, 23, about to get drafted in the NFL. It does kind of make sense that he wouldn't break through. It honestly a little bit reminds me of when Texas Tech had Baker Mayfield. He leaves, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man. I watched Mayfield. He looked like a professional quarterback. What are they going to do? And it turns out, I guess, Patrick Mahomes ended up being a pretty good quarterback at the college level and the pro level. And then they had Davis Webb on those teams, which was interesting to me as well that, you just have 3 professional quarterbacks that played for the Giants. Mayfield's played for a few teams, and the Chiefs, all on that Texas Tech roster. Same thing, it reminds me of Phi Slamma Jamma, maybe Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler. I just think it's cool when multiple professional athletes are on the same college team. Kind of a cool thing from the University of Houston Cougars. Anyway, back to football. So Tyler Warren, when you watch Penn State play, they really ran their offense through him. He was basically their third down chain mover. They used him kind of like a Kelsey or something like that. He was a target for screen passes. If you watch them, you see a lot of play action, and the quarterback right away screen to Warren, check down to Warren. He was a wildcat QB for them. He was also a center in an unbalanced formation where he snapped the ball to Aller, and then he literally runs a route and scores a touchdown against USC. That's a pretty good highlight. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen that one before. He's really a jack of all trades, but with that phrase, usually people would say jack of all trades but master of none, though oftentimes better than a master of just one. I actually would say he's a jack of all trades, but he does have a master skill, which is his after catch aggressiveness. I really like the way he gets the ball in his hands, and immediately he's like an orc from Lord of the Rings, just out to do some damage, inflict pain on the defense, and get some yards, get a touchdown. It's just really fun to watch. And the Colts, to this point, really since Dallas Clark retired, they've been looking for a tight end. They've been a revolving door at tight end, and this really puts an end to that. He could be the fast guy if you want to have a blocking guy in there, or if you want to have a more receiving type threat in there, he could be the stronger inline guy. That's really, if you remember the Luther Burden or the receiver videos when I was talking about Luther Burden, the 87, he needs complementary pieces around him, and he did get that in Colston Loveland, who we'll get into in just a minute here. But what I was saying about this revolving door situation with the Colts and why he ends it is because he's a complementary piece in a way that you can come out in 11 personnel with him as your only tight end and 3 receivers, and it's like you have 4 receivers. Or if you want to come out with 2 tight ends, he could be either the faster guy or the stronger guy. He's just a great piece. All right, so now when I think about how he translates to the next level, he is going to be playing for Shane Steichen. Shout out UNLV. Shane Steichen came from the Eagles, so I do think Shane Steichen's going to be seeing him as his Dallas Goedert. You know, he's very similar in size to Dallas Goedert, 6'5", 250 some odd pounds. And I think that he has a very similar game. Great aggressiveness. He doesn't have to be the focal point of your offense, but he definitely can be. If you need someone to come out and be an alpha tight end that week and stiff arm a Packers player to, you know, the oblivion or whatever, he can do stuff like that. It's pretty cool. But he doesn't have to be. He's happy to come in and play a role. He's happy to block. He's happy to do all the RPO and the silly stuff. He's just happy to be on the field. He has great aggressiveness, a great attitude, and that's why I drew so many comparisons to Dallas Goedert. I was just thinking, you know, I mean, they even look similar to me. When you see how their body type is, when you see how their game is, when you see their run after catch, I feel like a lot of people are saying Kittle, which I do kind of see, but Kittle's a little more one of a kind, whereas I do see a lot more Goddard when I watch Tyler Warren, especially now that I saw he went to the Colts. I can just picture him going right into all that RPO role and all of that. So I have gotten a full minute ahead of my script, so I'll actually use this opportunity to remind myself to breathe and remind you guys to like and subscribe. It just means a lot to me. You guys are giving me a chance to talk about football, to watch football, to make these videos. It's just really cool, and I appreciate you guys being here. And it just, it really means the world to me that you guys are watching, and those of you that are staying for the whole thing. It's really, really cool. It's going to get in front of more people. It's going to grow my viewer base. It's going to get in front of more people that might like it. And it's just, it's going to grow from here, and the videos are going to get better. I'm doing this all myself. Pretty much minimal help from anyone, but I appreciate you guys. The viewers are really making this all possible, and it's just super cool. Thank you so, so much. So, before you nominate me for an Academy Award for that thank you speech, I think it's time we get into the second prospect here. That'll be Colston Loveland. Initially, he was a 4-star prospect, the number 1 prospect into the state of Idaho for the incoming freshman class of 2022. In 2021, which would have been his senior year, he was actually the Idaho Gatorade Player of the Year. In 3 seasons with the Michigan Wolverines, he played in 39 total games, 117 receptions, 1,466 total yards, and 11 touchdowns in his career. In his junior season, true junior season, he only was in college for 3 years, he had 56 receptions for 582 yards and 5 touchdowns in 10 games. And I know what you might be thinking. Hey, wait a second. Because Tyler Warren, who we were just talking about, had 104 receptions for 1,233 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's like twice as much of everything. But he also did that in 16 games. And what Loveland was doing, he was doing as a 20-year-old true junior, as opposed to Tyler Warren, a 22-year-old redshirt senior, 5th-year player. If you compare what Warren did in his 3rd year at Penn State to Loveland's 56 receptions and 582 yards, it doesn't even compare. He only had 10 receptions for 123 yards when he was Loveland's age. So Loveland definitely had an earlier breakout age, as a lot of people would call it, and that does matter to some people. But on the other hand, you could say, hey, I'd give me the guy with 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns all day before you tell me that this guy with 56 receptions and 500 yards is the way better receiving prospect, which is unfortunately exactly what I'm just about to do. Now, the main difference I would say in these two players' play style would be that Warren's main advantage will come after he catches the ball and he's able to do something with it, whereas Loveland helps your offense before the ball is thrown. He is putting stress on zones. He can beat man coverage. He can win short, intermediate, and deep. He can win on in-breaking routes and out-breaking routes. And he does have that great frame. He's also 6'5". He only weighs about 10, 15 pounds less than the Warren types of the world. I really found it interesting. I was listening to Emory Hunt on the College Draft podcast with Ross Tucker a few weeks before the draft, and he put Loveland in the Laporta category stylistically. And he wasn't saying he's in the same tier, that he's going to break a bunch of records or anything like that, but he was saying that he sees him as that type of a player to do those sorts of things for an offense. And then sure enough, the draft comes, and Ben Johnson, the guy who was just coaching Laporta last season and went to the Bears, gets his Laporta in Loveland. So I think it's funny that Emory Hunt said that a few weeks before, and then it just turns out that the Bears head coach and front office is actually seeing it the exact same way. What then do I think he's going to translate to at the next level? Well, for a tight end, especially a first-round tight end, usually you expect them to be more of a blocker than he is. I think even Dalton Kincaid blocked better than Colston Loveland does. There's like one or two blocks you can put him in there, and he'll be able to help somebody or do something like that. It's almost like polar opposites, I would say. When he puts his hand in the dirt, it's going to be the defense is like, okay, yeah, right, what's he doing? But then when he's in the huddle on a passing down, the secondary is going to be thinking, all right, what are we going to do against this now? This was quite possibly the most difficult comparison I had to draw during this specific video, because Loveland's a pretty unique player, and with him going to play for the Bears and Ben Johnson, it was just everyone's going to be thinking Laporta, and it's so hard not to draw that comparison. So I went in a slightly different direction as opposed to Laporta. I went with Isaiah Likely, because I'm not saying you draft someone in the top 10 to be a decoy. That doesn't make any sense. But the way that Likely is deployed, he only needs a few touches a game to impact the entire defensive scheme. And those 1 or 2 times a year that he's not impacting the defensive scheme and the defensive coordinator just says, oh yeah, I'll just let Isaiah Likely run free. Then he gets, 9 catches on 11 targets for 100 and something yards and a touchdown, and he just absolutely has a monster game. So he's not a decoy as much as he is someone that will bring your offense up to the next threshold. Like, if you only had 4 guys that could catch passes before, or you only had 3 guys that could catch passes before, this just opens up the whole offense, that you have a tight end that you can put out at boundary X and he can win. You have a tight end that you can put in the formation, in line, and he can win against linebackers or safeties. And you can actually put him in motion and do some big slot type stuff with him in the game. So yeah, just picture like if Isaiah Likely had enough of a pedigree to go in the top 10, what that would add to your offense. That's what Loveland adds. All right, let's get into Cameron Ward next. The man, the myth, the legend, number 1 pick in the draft, Cameron Ward. He was a 0-star prospect. That's right, 0 stars, coming out of West Columbia High School in Texas, which is near Houston. He was a wing T quarterback, so he was only throwing like 10 passes a game. He didn't get any offers. Well, actually only got 1 offer from Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, who had only really had a football team for 11 years at that point. As a freshman, he starts 6 games. They go 3-3 in those games, but he had 26 total touchdowns. He really took care of the ball, only 4 interceptions. As a sophomore the next season at Incarnate Word, I was actually calling this his FCS farewell tour. because once you throw for 4,648 passing yards and 47 passing touchdowns, you're going to most likely enter the transfer portal and head somewhere like a Power 5 school like Washington State was in 2022. His first season at Washington State, that would be his junior season, but he ends up having 2 more years of eligibility after this because they didn't count the COVID year against anybody. That was basically a free year. A lot of players got a 5th year, which we call a super senior season. So in 2022, his first year at Washington State, it's really just a one-man show. Different players are leading the team and receiving every week for the first 7 weeks. It's week 8 before you have a repeat receiving leader. And there was multiple games, not only in 22, but in 23, where he leads the team in passing and in rushing, but not even with an impressive rushing line. It's like 30 rushing yards or 40 rushing yards, and just none of the running backs can get going. So there was high hopes. They had Cam Ward. They knew what they were, they knew what they had at that time, and they were just really excited going into 2023. But the team just didn't quite live up to those expectations. A 44-6 loss to Arizona. They added Kyle Williams from UNLV, and Lincoln Victor, who had transferred in 2 years before from Hawaii, really stepped up. They were they're both professional receivers now. Kyle Williams plays for the Patriots, and Lincoln Victor plays in Canada, and that's only because he's so small. He's 5'7", 170 pounds, something like that. He's a beast of a football player, but he's just not quite big enough to play in the NFL. The Broncos signed him for 3 days in May of 2024. But even though they did add these good receivers and Cameron Ward was playing well, they were just so one-dimensional. Their leading rusher, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of games, Cam Ward with 20 yards. It was just ugly. And then the defense lacked depth at first. That was your first takeaway watching the defense, and then I think their effort even went away. I think the defense kind of gave up watching the offense go 3 and out, 3 passes, 4th and 10, punt, the defense is back on the field. It was almost like another season, same old Wazoo Cougars. So they went 5-7. He was pretty much on his way out after that. This time last year, which is when he was in the portal, they would have thought he would have been like a 4th or 5th round quarterback, a decent player. But then he goes to Miami, and that's just really the super senior season, as I mentioned it, and he was definitely super. He scored over 40 touchdowns, only 7 picks. Xavier Restrepo was just going crazy. Damian Martinez also got drafted off of this Miami team. It was just awesome, and they eventually ended up getting derailed on the way to the playoffs, but statistically, they had great seasons. They knew that they were professionals. NFL scouts could tell that Cam Ward was a professional quarterback, and obviously he ended up being the number 1 pick in the draft because he didn't have headphones playing around his neck in his interviews, I'm guessing. We'll get to that in a little bit. So what do I see when I try to project Cam Ward to the next level? He's a strong kid. He has a good arm, but not probably top 10 talent arm. Maybe that 10 to 15 range, maybe like a Jordan Love level arm. He has good size to him. He's a little stocky, but he's maybe think of like a little bit of a taller Russell Wilson when you think of how he's built, because he's actually 230 pounds listed coming out of high school, which I guess has dropped down to 219 since the combine. But I wasn't quite sure. The number one thing that I appreciated about his game was probably the ball security, and his legs are going to be a factor. He's not going to run around like Lamar Jackson or like Jaden Daniels, but he might give you a little bit of that Russell Wilson something. He might give you a little bit of that Jordan Love something. I actually ended up drawing this comparison to a quarterback from 2 decades ago now. The 2005 draft, not the 2025 draft. Alex Smith. I loved the way that he protected the ball at the University of Utah under Urban Meyer. I loved his accuracy in the short and intermediate game. I loved the way that he hung in there against sacks and would deliver the ball to the right target, even though the reads were kind of easy in this offense, this spread that even, I guess Alex Smith was more spread, and then Cameron Ward is more of an air raid type guy, but it's just they make the right read, they protect the ball, and at the next level, he's not a guy you want to have 5 offensive coordinators in 5 years like they did to Alex Smith. He's kind of a guy you want to get consistency with. He would crave that, I think, if he was missing consistency and they're constantly having turnover in Tennessee. I think that would be hard on a quarterback that's only 6'1" and has not been in an NFL type system yet. It could just be a little bit of growing pains, but there was growing pains for Alex Smith, prolonged by bad ownership, hiring bad coaches that made him have a little bit of a bad career path. But, I mean, a decade later or longer, he was in Washington playing for the Commanders on one leg. He literally said that when he had that, almost lost his leg, he had that surgery, he literally said that he was watching Phillip Rivers to see how to play without being mobile. So, ball security, dedication to the craft, a little bit of a questionable system he's coming from, but really just a tough kid. Seems like a great way to spend the number 1 pick. I draw a lot of comparisons between play style for Cam Ward and Alex Smith, and I think that's a huge compliment to both these guys because they're both awesome. And without further ado, let's do what everyone else is doing and talk about Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders was born in Tyler, Texas, with a silver spoon in his mouth and a platinum watch on his wrist. He was initially a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. As a true freshman at Jackson State in 2021, he led them to an 11-2 record with 3,231 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He was really just kind of flew onto the scene. And in 2022, he does the same thing that Cam Ward did the year before, and he pretty much goes on his farewell tour to the FCS and throws for 46 total touchdowns. I think 40 of them were passing. Only 6 interceptions, 3,700 passing yards for Jackson State. And then, when his dad gets the job at Colorado after that season, he follows him there. He's a 4-star prospect in the transfer portal when he followed his dad to Colorado, where, to no one's surprise, he was immediately named the starting quarterback. So in 2023, their offense definitely made some noise with Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, but it was actually similar to Ward at Washington State. They were very one-dimensional. They struggled with pass protection. They struggled to get stops on third downs. It was a lot of the same stuff that I mentioned with Cam Ward. They just didn't really have a run game, and it turned into a one-man show. However, Sanders can't really run around. Sanders was not the leading rusher as much as Ward was, even though they both had anemic run games. And then in 2024, which would have been Sanders' senior season, 74% of his passes were completed. They improved their record by 5 wins, from 4-7 to 9-4. It kind of went from, you had to cover your eyes and not watch, to, okay, you can peek through your fingers sometimes and, see Shedeur throw a really accurate pass, and once in a while they can get a stop on third down, that type of thing. Or they also had the number 1 recruit in the nation coming at left tackle. That definitely helped Shedeur, which is also how I ended up drawing this comparison, because he's undersized. He plays much better when he has a good offensive line in front of him, but he's very accurate. So I actually drew some comparisons to Tua Tagovailoa. And now I am behind. So as you can see, these other quarterbacks pop up, followed by running backs, 2 slides of receivers and tight ends. Feel free to pause on those, but I'll just get into them real quick. Initially, I liked I like Jackson Dart, comparing him. People have said Josh Allen, things like that, but he's 6'2", he's smaller than Allen. But I do love his runaround ability, and I do think that he can do some stuff at the next level. I think he's very capable. I think capable is a good word for Jackson Dart. So I went with Jake Plummer for his comparison. Dylan Gabriel, undersized guy, really good arm. That's just Sam Howell. It just depends. Is he going to get into the right situation that's going to, load him up? Are they going to set him up for success or not? That's pretty much what it comes down to with a lot of these quarterbacks. And then I'm going to compare Milroe to Justin Fields because he really just has game-breaking running ability, but it's questionable whether or not he's going to be able to operate your offense in a functioning passing game on 2nd and long or 3rd and long or in a 2-minute drive, because there are weeks when Justin Fields, it looks like he's running all over the field, and then you look at his passing stats and he completes like 12 passes or 10 passes, and he's just not really putting any pressure on the defense vertically. He's just stressing them out horizontally, running around like a maniac. And then we'll round out quarterback comparisons, comparing Tyler Shuck to Drew Lock, and that's basically just me saying the good can be good and the bad can be really bad with him, but the key to quarterback play is consistency. So maybe he'll end up being more consistent than Lock has been, and that'll be good for him. I'm probably not going to go over every guy from here on out because we are running out of a little bit of time. Some of my favorite comparisons, though, would be Travion Henderson. Really reminds me, when he's building up and his legs are turning, it just reminds me so much of that old school Darren McFadden, 2007, 2008, in the Arkansas uniform, just taking off, which, I mean, I understand Henderson's 6 feet tall or 5'10" and runs a 4.4, whereas McFadden was like over 6 feet tall and ran a 4.3. He was just a really physical specimen. He was nearly as big as Adrian Peterson. Darren McFadden was really quite a beast. Quinshon Judkins, I think the Browns are going to try and get their Jonathan Taylor. Nick Chubb is obviously too many knee injuries. They released him, or maybe he just hit free agency. So they went with Judkins at the top of the 2nd, which is also where Jonathan Taylor got drafted. So that just makes sense that I think that's their goal for him, or maybe that's what they're hoping that they're getting. Cam Scatterbo, you probably saw Peyton Hillis on the Madden 12 cover. That's just what I see. Angry runner, not very great top end speed, but not a fullback either. He's definitely a tailback at the next level, and he can add a level of physicality, aggressiveness to your run game, which would honestly complement Tyrone Tracy's receiving ability, Tyrone Tracy's, more elusiveness, as opposed to Cam Scatterbo, that Peyton Hillis grinding you into the ground. RJ Harvey, I'm going to be honest, I really didn't picture him going in the 2nd round, but he did. Undersized, like 5'9". I think he's a little bit of like a faster Kyron Williams. That's kind of what I see. Smart runner. You can really base your offense around him. There's no such thing as too many touches for Kyron, and there's no such thing as too many touches for RJ Harvey. Travis Hunter, you saw that slim frame, the great ball skills, that's Devontae Smith to me. And then on defense, if you say those exact same words, it's like Joey Porter Jr. I mean, just lengthy, a nose for the ball. He might not be the best player on that defense, but don't tell him that, because he is out there to make some noise. Matthew Golden, 1st round to the Packers. DJ Moore I went with for him because they're going to expect him to open things up vertically, deep post routes, deep corner routes, straight vertical routes. That's really, I think, what they'll be expecting from DJ Moore. Or from Matthew Golden, they're going to be expecting DJ Moore type production. Jaden Higgins, I think they're getting Michael Pittman Jr., just a big, tough guy, does a lot of 1st round type stuff, just exciting stuff. And the last one I'll mention, I think Jack Besh. I see a lot of Jordy Nelson. I think that's a really cool thing. I think he's going to be what the Raiders thought they were getting the first time they signed Jordy, and they didn't.